It started with a sound that cut through the hum of cicadas and the steady drone of summer heat. Ethan Miller was walking the ridge above his hay fields when he heard it. Not a bird, not the snap of a branch, but something raw, a strangled rasp that made the hairs on his neck rise. He froze, scanning the tree line. The sun was high, baking the earth, and the forest below shimmered in haze. Then it came again, faint, desperate, the sound of life slipping away. Ethan dropped the bag of tools he was carrying and rushed toward the slope. The ground gave way beneath his boots. He slid on loose gravel, tearing his palms as he grabbed at roots, until he reached the dry creek bed below. And there it was, an adult lynx, sprawled on the rocks, her spotted flank heaving in shallow jerks. Blood seeped from a deep gash along her hind leg. One ear twitched, and her golden eyes fluttered half open before rolling back. "God Almighty," Ethan whispered, kneeling. He'd seen wild animals before. Deer, foxes, even the shadow of a bear once. But never this close, never like this. She was magnificent even in agony. He pressed his shirt against the wound, his hands trembling as warm blood soaked through the fabric. With his phone wedged between shoulder and ear, he spoke in gasps to Dr. Sarah Collins, the town's veterinarian. "She's bleeding out, Sarah. I don't know what the hell to do." Her voice was steady. "Keep pressure. Use anything you have. You need to slow the bleeding before you move her. And Ethan, stay calm. She won't fight you if she's this weak. Stay calm." As if that were possible. He tore his sleeve, fashioned a tight wrap, and whispered half to himself, half to the unconscious lynx. "Don't you dare quit on me now." Using 2 fence posts and his jacket, he built a stretcher. Every step hauling her uphill was torture. Sweat poured, his back screamed, but he kept going. By the time he reached his truck, his arms shook so hard he almost dropped her. The barn, usually filled with hay dust and tools, became an emergency ward. He laid her down on blankets, checked her breathing, and called Sarah again. Hours later, when her car pulled into the yard, Ethan felt his knees nearly buckle with relief. Sarah examined the animal quickly, her eyes narrowing. "She's female. Ethan, she's nursing. Somewhere out there, her kittens are waiting." The words hit harder than any blow. "We can't leave them," he said. Sarah hesitated. "It's risky. They could be anywhere on that cliff." But Ethan was already grabbing a flashlight. He didn't have kids of his own, but he knew the bond between mother and young. He couldn't leave them to die. That's when Jake, his teenage neighbor, sprinted across the yard. "I heard yelling. What's going on?" Ethan explained in quick bursts. The boy's eyes widened, but he didn't back away. "I'm coming with you." Against his better judgment, Ethan agreed. The forest grew darker as they climbed, crickets shrieking in the underbrush. Their flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the trees. At the base of a ledge, they heard faint cries, thin, pitiful mews. The first kitten was wedged beneath a root, trembling but alive. Ethan scooped it into his jacket. The second, weaker, lay farther out on a narrow shelf. Jake, pale but determined, crawled toward it, his body pressed against the rock. His hand closed around the tiny form, and Ethan yanked him back just as a chunk of stone crumbled beneath his feet. They returned to the barn exhausted, dirt streaking their faces. Inside, the lynx lay motionless. Ethan placed the kittens beside her. For a moment nothing happened. Then one wriggled toward her, and a faint sound, almost a growl, almost a sigh, escaped her throat. Headlights cut across the barn wall. A truck door slammed. A tall man in uniform stepped inside. Mark Reynolds, wildlife inspector. His eyes hardened as he took in the scene. "Keeping a predator in your barn, Miller? That's against the law." Ethan rose, chest tight. She was dying. Her kids too. "You'd rather I left them to rot out there?" Mark's jaw flexed. He studied the lynx, the bloodied bandage, the 2 tiny bundles pressed against her side. For a long moment the barn held only silence. Then his voice softened. "For tonight, she stays. Tomorrow, she goes to the rehabilitation center." Relief washed over Ethan, though his body still shook. The night dragged on. Sarah dozed in a chair. Jake curled up on the hay. Ethan sat by the lynx, listening to every small sound, the rasp of her breath, the faint cries of the kittens. Each time her eyes flickered open, he felt as if she was testing him, deciding whether to trust. At dawn she raised her head, weak but alive, and looked straight at him. It wasn't gratitude. Wild animals don't show that. It was something else, a recognition that he had bought her one more chance. The next morning, Sarah sedated her gently. Ethan carried the kittens himself, cradling them as if they were glass. Together, they loaded the family into the transport cage. Mark signed the papers, his voice quieter than the night before. "You did right, Miller. Not many would have." As the truck rumbled away, Ethan stood in the dust, his barn suddenly too empty. Weeks passed. Ethan worked his fields, fixed broken machinery, lost himself in the rhythm of farming. But at night he thought of the lynx, of the way her chest had shuddered beneath his hands, of the kittens pressed to her side. He visited the center once. Behind the fence, Sarah smiled. "Her leg's healing. The kits are thriving. Give it a few more weeks." Time blurred. Summer waned. The air grew heavy with harvest. Then, one golden evening, as Ethan loaded the last bales, he saw movement at the edge of the field. She stood there, the lynx, whole again, muscles rippling beneath her spotted coat. Two younger shapes moved in the grass at her side, larger now, but still clumsy. Ethan froze. She did not approach. She did not linger. She simply watched, eyes burning with life, before turning silently toward the forest. The kits bounded after her. Ethan lifted a hand, a gesture of farewell more than greeting. They vanished into the trees, the sound swallowed by crickets. That night, lying in bed with the window open, Ethan listened to the silence. It wasn't emptiness anymore. It was a reminder that sometimes life hangs by a thread, and sometimes the only thing that matters is whether someone is willing to hold on. And he knew, as long as he walked those fields, he would never truly be alone again.